Book 4. Now the gods were sitting with Zeus in council upon the golden floor, while Hebe went round pouring out nectar for them to drink. As they pledged one another in their cups of gold, they looked down upon the city of Troy. The son of Cronus then began to tease Hera, talking at her so as to provoke her. "Menelaus," said he, "has two good friends among the goddesses, Hera of Argos and Athene of Alalcomene. But they only sit still and look on, while Aphrodite keeps ever by Paris's side to defend him in any danger. Indeed, she has just rescued him when he made sure that it was all over with him. For the victory really did lie with Menelaus. We must consider what we shall do about all this. Shall we set them fighting anew, or make peace between them? If you will agree to this last, Menelaus can take back Helen, and the city of Priam may remain still inhabited." Athene and Hera muttered their discontent as they sat side by side, hatching mischief for the Trojans. Athene scowled at her father, for she was in a furious passion with him and said nothing, but Hera could not contain herself. "Dread son of Cronus," said she, "what, pray, is the meaning of all this? Is my trouble then to go for nothing, and the sweat that I have sweated, to say nothing of my horses, while getting the people together against Priam and his children? Do as you will, but we other gods shall not all of us approve your counsel." Zeus was angry and answered, "My dear, what harm have Priam and his sons done you that you are so hotly bent on sacking the city of Ilium? Will nothing do for you, but you must go within their walls and eat Priam raw, with his sons and all the other Trojans to boot? Have it your way then, for I will not have this matter become a bone of contention between us. I say further, and lay my saying to your heart, if ever I want to sack a city belonging to a friend of yours, you must not try to stop me. You will have to let me do it, for I am giving in to you sorely against my will. Of all inhabited cities under the sun and stars of heaven, there is none that I so much respect as Ilium, with Priam and his whole people. Equitable feasts were never wanting about my altar, nor the savor of burning fat, which is the honor due to ourselves." "My own 3 favorite cities," answered Hera, "are Argos, Sparta, and Mycenae. Sack them whenever you may be displeased with them. I shall not defend them, and I shall not care. Even if I did and tried to stay you, I should take nothing by it, for you are much stronger than I am. But I will not have my own work wasted. I too am a god, and of the same race with yourself. I am Cronus's eldest daughter, and am honorable not on this ground only, but also because I am your wife, and you are king over the gods. Let it be a case, then, of give and take between us, and the rest of the gods will follow our lead. Tell Athene to go, and take part in the fight at once, and let her contrive that the Trojans shall be the first to break their oaths, and set upon the Achaeans." The sire of gods and men heeded her words, and said to Athene, "Go at once to the Trojan and Achaean hosts, and contrive that the Trojans shall be the first to break their oaths, and set upon the Achaeans." This was what Athene was already eager to do, so down she darted from the topmost summits of Olympus. She shot through the sky as some brilliant meteor, which the son of scheming Cronus has sent as a sign to mariners or to some great army, and a fiery train of light follows in its wake. The Trojans and Achaeans were struck with awe as they beheld, and one would turn to his neighbor, saying, "Either we shall again have war and din of combat, or Zeus the lord of battle will now make peace between us." Thus did they converse. Then Athene took the form of Laodocus, son of Antenor, and went through the ranks of the Trojans to find Pandarus, the redoubtable son of Lycaon. She found him standing among the stalwart heroes who had followed him from the banks of the Aesopus, so she went up close to him and said, "Brave son of Lycaon, will you do as I tell you? If you dare send an arrow at Menelaus, you will win honor and thanks from all the Trojans, especially from Prince Paris. He would be the first to requite you very handsomely if he could see Menelaus mount his funeral pyre slain by an arrow from your hand. Take your aim, then, and pray to Lycian Apollo, the famous archer. Vow that when you get home to your strong city of Zelia, you will offer a hecatomb of firstling lambs in his honor." His fool's heart was persuaded, and he took his bow from its case. This bow was made from the horns of a wild ibex which he had killed as it was bounding from a rock. He stalked it. Quick pause, sorry. These long descriptions are just to build poetic tension, so keep that in mind before something like, important is going to happen. So, backtrack. His fool's heart was persuaded, and he took his bow from its case. This bow was made from the horns of a wild ibex which he had killed as it was bounding from a rock. He had stalked it, and it had fallen as the arrow struck to its heart. Its thorns were 16 palms long, and a worker in horn had made them into a bow, smoothing them well down, and giving them tips of gold. When Pandarus had strung his bow, he laid it carefully on the ground, and his brave followers held their shields before him, lest the Achaeans should set upon him when he had shot Menelaus. Then he opened the lid of his quiver, and took out a winged arrow that had never yet been shot, fraught with the pangs of death. He laid the arrow on the string and prayed to Lycian Apollo, the famous archer, vowing that when he got home to his strong city of Zelia, he would offer a hecatomb of firstling lambs in his honor. He laid the notch of the arrow on the ox-hide bowstring, drew both notch and string to his breast till the arrowhead was near the bow. Then, when the bow was arched into a half-circle, he let fly, and the bow twanged, and the strings sang as the arrow flew gladly on over heads of the throng. But the blessed gods did not forget thee, O Menelaus, and Zeus's daughter, driver of the spoil, was the first to stand before thee and ward off the piercing arrow. She turned it from his skin as a mother whisks a fly off of her child when it is sleeping sweetly. She guided it to the part where the golden buckles of the belt that passed over his double cuirass were fastened, so the arrow struck the belt that went tightly round him. It went right through this, and through the cuirass of cunning workmanship. It also pierced the belt beneath it, which he wore next to his skin to keep out darts or arrows. It was this that served him in the best stead. Nevertheless, the arrow went through it, and grazed the top of the skin, so that blood began to flow from the wound. As when some woman of Maeonia or Caria strains purple dye onto a piece of ivory that is to be cheek-piece of a horse, and is to be laid up in a treasure house, many a knight is fain to bear it, but the king keeps it as an ornament of which both horse and driver may be proud. Even so, O Menelaus, were your shapely thighs and your legs down to your fair ankles stained with blood. When King Agamemnon saw the blood flowing from the wound, he was afraid, and so was brave Menelaus himself, till he saw that the barbs of the arrow and the thread that bound the arrowhead to the shaft were still outside the wound. Then he took heart, but Agamemnon heaved a deep sigh as he held Menelaus's hand in his own, and his comrades made moan in concert. "Dear brother," he cried, "I have been the death of you in pledging this covenant and letting you come forward as our champion. The Trojans have trampled on our oaths and have wounded you. Nevertheless, the oath, the blood of lambs, the drink offerings, and the right hands of fellowship in which we have put our trust shall not be in vain. If he that rules Olympus fulfill it not here and now, he will yet fulfill it hereafter, and they shall pay dearly with their lives and with their wives and children. The day will surely come when mighty Ilium shall be laid low, when Priam and Priam's people, when the son of Cronus from his high throne shall overshadow them with his awful aegis in punishment of their present treachery. This shall surely be. But how, Menelaus, shall I mourn you, if it be your lot now to die? I should return to Argos as a byword, for the Achaeans will at once go home. We shall leave Priam and the Trojans the glory of still keeping Helen, and the earth will rot your bones as you lie here in Troy with your purpose not fulfilled. Then shall some braggart Trojan leap upon your tomb and say, 'Ever thus may Agamemnon wreak his vengeance. He brought his army in vain. He has gone home to his own land in empty ships and has left Menelaus behind him.' Thus will one of them say, and may the earth then swallow me." But Menelaus reassured him and said, "Take heart, and do not alarm the people. The arrow has not struck me in a mortal spot, for my outer belt of burnished metal first stayed it, and under this my cuirass and belt of mail, which the bronze smiths made me." Okay, one second. I have to make sure I'm pronouncing this word right, because it's come up like 5 times. One second. Cuirass. Cuirass. Cuirass or cuirass. Okay, so I'm okay. Sorry. And Agamemnon answered, I trust, dear Menelaus, that it may even be so, but the surgeon shall examine your wound and lay herbs upon it to relieve your pain. He then said to Talthybius, tell Machaon, son to the great physician Asclepius, to come and see Menelaus immediately. Some Trojan or Lycian archer has wounded him with an arrow to our dismay, and to his own great glory. Talthybius did as he was told, and went about the host, trying to find Machaon. Presently he found him standing amid the brave warriors who had followed him from Tricca. Thereupon he went up to him and said, Son of Asclepius, King Agamemnon says you are to come and see Menelaus immediately. Some Trojan or Lycian archer has wounded him with an arrow to our dismay and to his own great glory. Thus did he speak, and Machaon was moved to go. They passed through the spreading host of the Achaeans and went on till they came to the place where Menelaus had been wounded and was lying with the chieftains gathered in a circle around him. Machaon passed into the middle of the ring, and at once drew the arrow from the belt, bending its barbs back through the force with which he pulled it out. He undid the burnished belt, and beneath this the cuirass and the belt of mail which the bronzesmiths had made. Then, when he had seen the wound, he wiped away the blood and applied some soothing drugs which Chiron had given to Asclepius out of the goodwill he bore him. Chiron is a centaur, and centaurs, as you probably know, are typically like beasts. I mean, they're intelligent, but they're jerks. And Chiron is like the sweet old centaur who likes to help people. He also features in the Percy Jackson books as the guy in a wheelchair, Sorry. Yeah. And for those of you who like Guild Wars too, he's kind of like Ventari. While they were thus busy about Menelaus, the Trojans came forward against them, for they had put on their armor and now renewed the fight. You would not have then found Agamemnon asleep, nor cowardly and unwilling to fight, but eager rather for the fray. He left his chariot rich with bronze, and his panting steeds in charge of Eurymedon, son of Ptolemaeus, the son of Parias, and bade him hold them in readiness against the time his limbs should be weary of going about and giving orders to so many, for he went among the ranks on foot. When he saw men hasting to the front, he stood by them and cheered them on. Argives, said he, slacken not one whit in your onset. Father Zeus will be no helper of liars. The Trojans have been the first to break their oaths and to attack us, therefore they shall be devoured of vultures. We shall take their city and carry off their wives and children in our ships. But he angrily rebuked those whom he saw shirking and disinclined to fight. Argives, he cried, cowardly, miserable creatures, have you no shame to stand there like frightened fawns who, when they can no longer scud over the plain, huddle together but show no fight? You are dazed and spiritless as deer. Would you wait till the Trojans reach the stems of our ships as they lie on the shore, to see whether the son of Cronus will hold his hand over you to protect you? Thus did he go about giving his orders among the ranks. Passing through the crowd, he came presently on the Cretans, armed round Idomeneus, who was at their head, fierce as a wild boar, while Meriones was bringing up the battalions that were in the rear. Agamemnon was glad when he saw him, and spoke him fairly. Idomeneus, said he, I treat you with a greater distinction than I do any other of the Achaeans, whether in war or in other things, or at table. When their princes are mixing my choicest wine in the mixing bowls, they each have of them a fixed allowance, but your cup is kept always full like my own, that you may drink whenever you are minded. Go, therefore, into battle, and show yourself the man that you have always been proud to be. Idomeneus answered, I will be a trusty comrade, as I promised you from the first I would be. Urge on the other Achaeans that we may join battle at once, for the Trojans have trampled upon their covenants. Death and destruction shall be theirs, seeing that they have been the first to break their oaths and to attack us. Idomeneus' voice is just going to keep getting weirder. The son of Atreus went on, glad at heart, till he came upon the two Ajaxes arming themselves amid a host of foot soldiers. as when a goat herd from some high post watches a storm drive over the deep before the west wind, black as pitch is the offing, and a mighty whirlwind draws toward him so that he is afraid and drives his flocks into a cave. Even thus did the ranks of stalwart youths move in a dark mass to battle under the Ajaxes, horrid with shield and spear. Glad was King Agamemnon when he saw them. "No need," he cried, "to give orders to such leaders of the Argives as you are, for of your own selves you spur your men on to fight with might and main. Would, by Father Zeus, Athene, and Apollo, that all were so minded as you are, for the city of Priam would then soon fall beneath our hands, and we should sack it." With this he left them, and went onward to Nestor, the facile speaker of the Pelians, who was marshalling his men and urging them on, in company with Pelagon, Alastor, Chromius, Haemon, and Bias, shepherd of his people. He placed his knights with their chariots and horses in the front rank, while the foot soldiers, brave men and many, whom he could trust, were in the rear. The cowards he drove into the middle, that they might fight whether they would or no. He gave his orders to the knights first, bidding them hold their horses well in hand so as to avoid confusion. "Let no man," he said, "relying on his strength or horsemanship, get before the others and engage singly with the Trojans, nor yet let him lag behind, as you will weaken your attack, but let each, when he meets an enemy's chariot, throw his spear from his own. This will be much the best. This is how the men of old took towns and strongholds. In this wise were they minded." Thus did the old man charge them, for he had been in many a fight, and King Agamemnon was glad. "I wish," said he to him, "that your limbs were as supple and your strength as sure as your judgment is. But age, the common enemy of mankind, has laid his hand upon you. Would that it had fallen upon some other, and that you were still young." And Nestor, knight of Gerene, answered, "Son of Atreus, I too would gladly be the man I was when I slew mighty Eurythalion, but the gods would not give us everything at one and the same time. I was then young, and now I am old. Still, I can go with my knights and give them that counsel which old men have a right to give. The wielding of the spear I leave to those who are younger and stronger than myself." Agamemnon went on his way rejoicing, and presently found Menesthius, son of Peteos, tarrying in his place, and with him were the Athenians loud of tongue in battle. Near him also tarried cunning Odysseus, with his sturdy Cephallenians round him. They had not yet heard the battle cry, for the ranks of Trojans and Achaeans had only just begun to move, so they were standing still, waiting for some other column of the Achaeans to attack the Trojans and begin the fighting. When he saw this, Agamemnon rebuked them and said, "Son of Peteus, and you others, steeped in cunning, heart of guile, why stand you here cowering and waiting on others? You two should be of all men foremost when there is hard fighting to be done, for you are ever foremost to accept my invitation when we counselors of the Achaeans are holding a feast. You are glad enough then to take your fill of roast meats and to drink wine as long as you please, whereas now you would not care though you saw 10 columns of Achaeans engage the enemy in front of you." Odysseus glared at him and answered, "Son of Atreus, what are you talking about? How can you say that we are slack? When the Achaeans are in full fight with the Trojans, you shall see, if you care to do so, that the father of Telemachus will join the battle with the foremost of them. You are talking idly." When Agamemnon saw that Odysseus was angry, he smiled pleasantly at him and withdrew his words. "Odysseus," said he, "noble son of Laertes, excellent in all good counsel. I have neither fault to find nor orders to give you, for I know your heart is right, and that you and I are of a mind. Enough, I will make you amends for what I have said, and if any ill has now been spoken, may the gods bring it to nothing." He then left them and went on to others. Presently he saw the son of Tydeus, noble Diomed, standing by his chariot and horses, with Silenus, the son of Capaneus, beside him, whereon he began to upbraid him. "Son of Tydeus," he said, "why stand you cowering here upon the brink of battle? Tydeus did not shrink thus, but was ever ahead of his men when leading them on against the foe. So, at least, they say that saw him in battle, for I never set eyes upon him myself. They say that there was no man like him. He came once to Mycenae, not as an enemy, but as a guest, in company with Polynices to recruit his forces, for they were levying war against the strong city of Thebes, and prayed our people for a body of picked men to help them. The men of Mycenae were willing to let them have one, but Zeus dissuaded them by showing them unfavorable omens. Tydeus, therefore, and Polynices went on their way. When they had got as far as the deep-meadowed and rush-grown banks of Aesopus, the Achaeans sent Tydeus as their envoy, and he found the Cadmeans gathered in great numbers to a banquet at the house of Eteocles. Stranger though he was, he knew no fear on finding himself single-handed among so many, but challenged them to contests of all kinds, and each one of them was at once victorious, so mightily did Athene help him. And in each one of them was at once victorious, so mightily did Athene help him. The Cadmeans were incensed at his success, and set a force of 50 youths with 2 captains, the godlike hero of Maion, son of Haemon, and Polyphontes, son of Autophonus, at their head, to lie in wait for him on his return journey. But Tydeus slew every man of them, save only Maion, whom he let go in obedience to heaven's omens. Such was Tydeus of Aetolia. His son can talk more glibly, but he cannot fight as his father did. Diomed made no answer, for he was shamed by the rebuke of Agamemnon, but the son of Capaneus took up his words and said, "Son of Atreus, tell no lies, for you can speak truth if you will. We boast ourselves as even better men than our fathers. We took 7-gated Thebes, though the wall was stronger and our men were fewer in number, for we trusted in the omens of the gods and in the help of Zeus, whereas they perished through their own sheer folly. Hold not then our fathers in like honor with us." Diomed looked sternly at him and said, "Hold your peace, my friend, as I bid you. It is not amiss that Agamemnon should urge the Achaeans forward, for the glory will be his if we take the city, and his the shame if we are vanquished. Therefore let us acquit ourselves with valor." As he spoke, he sprang from his chariot, and his armor rang so fiercely about his body that even a brave man might well have been scared to hear it. As when some mighty wave that thunders on the beach when the west wind has lashed it into a fury, it has reared its head afar, and now comes crashing down on the shore, it bows its arching crest high over the jagged rocks, and spews its salt foam in all directions. Even so did the serried phalanxes of the Danaans march steadfastly into battle. The chiefs gave orders each to his own people, but the men never said a word. No man would think it, for huge as the host was, it seemed as though there was not a tongue among them, so silent were they in their obedience. And as they marched, the armor about their bodies glistened in the sun. But the clamor of the Trojan ranks was as that of many thousand ewes that stand waiting to be milked in the yards of some rich flock-master, that bleat incessantly in answer to the bleatings of their lambs. For they had not one speech nor language, but their tongues were diverse, and they came from many different places. These were inspired of Ares, but others by Athene, and with them came panic, rout, and strife, whose fury never tires, sister and friend of murderous Ares, who, from being at first but low in stature, grows until she uprears her head to the heavens, though her feet are still on the earth. She it was that went about among them and flung down discord to the waxing of sorrow, with even hand between them. When they got together in one place, shield clashed with shield, and spear with spear in the rage of battle. The bossed shields beat one upon another, and there was a tramp as of a great multitude, death cry and shout of triumph of slain and slayers, and the earth ran red with blood. As torrents, swollen with rain, course madly down their deep channels till the angry flood meets some gorge, and the shepherd on the hillside hears their roaring from afar. Even such was the toil and uproar of the hosts as they joined in battle. First, Antilochus slew an unarmed warrior of the Trojans, Echepolus, son of Thalesius, fighting in the foremost ranks. He struck at the projecting part of his helmet and drove the spear into his brow. The point of bronze pierced the bone, and darkness veiled his eyes. Headlong as a tower he fell amid the press of the fight. And as he dropped, King Elephenor, son of Chalcodon and captain of the proud Abantes, began dragging him out of reach of the darts that were falling around him, in haste to strip him of his armor. Quick side note, their suits of armor were worth like a ton of money. It's sort of like the equivalent of a nice car nowadays. So people are stripping off armor left and right because it's worth a lot, not just because they're crazy or something. Although they might be crazy, but that's another thing. But his purpose was not for long. Agenor saw him hauling the body away and smote him in the side with his bronze-shod spear, for as he stooped, his side was left unprotected by his shield, and thus he perished. Then the fight between Trojans and Achaeans grew furious over his body, and they flew upon each other like wolves, man and man, crushing one upon the other. Forthwith Ajax, son of Telamon, slew the fair young Simoeisius, son of Anthemion, whom his mother bore by the banks of the Simois as she was coming down from Mount Ida, where she had been with her parents to see their flocks. Therefore his name was Simoeisius. But he did not live to pay his parents for his rearing, for he was cut off untimely by the spear of mighty Ajax, who struck him in the breast by the right nipple, as he was coming on among the foremost fighters. The spear went right through his shoulder, and he fell, as a poplar that grows straight and tall in a meadow by some mere, and its top is thick with branches. Then the wheelwright lays his axe to its roots, that he may fashion a felly for the wheel of some goodly chariot, and it lies seasoning by the waterside. In such wise did Ajax fell to earth Simoeisius, son of Anthemion. Thereon Antiphus of the gleaming corslet, son of Priam, hurled a spear at Ajax from amid the crowd, and missed him, but he hit Leucus, the brave comrade of Odysseus, in the groin, as he was dragging the body of Simoeisius over to the other side. So he fell upon the body, and loosed his hold upon it. Odysseus was furious when he saw Leucus slain, and strode in full armor through the front ranks till he was quite close. Then he glared round about him and took aim, and the Trojans fell back as he did so. His dart was not sped in vain, for it struck Democoon, the bastard son of Priam, who had come to him from Abydos, where he had charge of his father's mares. Odysseus, infuriated by the death of his comrade, hit him with his spear on one temple, and the bronze point came through to the other side of his forehead. Thereon darkness veiled his eyes, and his armor rang rattling round him as he fell heavily to the ground. Hector, and they that were in front of them, gave ground while the Argives raised a shout and drew off the dead, pressing further forward as they did so. But Apollo looked down from Pergamus and called aloud to the Trojans, for he was displeased. "Trojans," he cried, "rush on the foe, and do not let yourselves be thus beaten by the Argives. Their skins are not stone, nor iron, that when you hit them you do them no harm. Moreover, Achilles, the son of lovely Thetis, is not fighting, but is nursing his anger at the ships." Thus spoke the mighty god, crying to them from the city, while Zeus's redoubtable daughter, the Trito-born, went down among the host of the Achaeans, and urged them forward, whenever she beheld them slackening. Then fate fell upon Diores, son of Amarynceus, for he was struck by a jagged stone near the ankle of his right leg. He that hurled it was Perous, son of Imbrasus, captain of the Thracians, who had come from Inus. The bones in both tendons were crushed by the pitiless stone. He fell to the ground on his back, and in his death throes stretched out his hands toward his comrades. But Perous, who had wounded him, sprang on him and thrust a spear into his belly so that his bowels came gushing out upon the ground, and darkness veiled his eyes. As he was leaving the body, Thoas of Aetolia struck him in the chest near the nipple, and the point fixed itself in his lungs. Thoas came close up to him, pulled the spear out of his chest, and then, drawing his sword, smote him in the middle of the belly so that he died. But he did not strip him of his armor, for his Thracian comrades, men who wear their hair in a tuft at the top of their heads, stood round the body and kept him off with their long spears for all his great stature and valor, so he was driven back. Thus the two corpses lay stretched on earth, near to one another, one captain of the Thracians, and the other of the Epeans, and many others fell round them. And now no man would have made light of the fighting if he could have gone about among it scatheless and unwounded, with Athene leading him by the hand and protecting him from the storm of spears and arrows. For many Trojans and Achaeans on that day stretched side by side, face downward, upon the earth. End of Book 4. A couple things I want to note before I move on to Book 5, aside from the fact that my voice is obviously suffering again. We encounter in these fighting scenes a lot of little, what do you want to call them? My professor likes to call them obituaries, where basically they go through a little tidbit of the person's life as the person is dying, and that's basically all you get of them for the most part. If you get like a mighty hero or whatever, you get a heck of a lot more detail. No spoilers about any of the people that are going to die, but some of them have, entire books or multiple books leading up to their deaths. Additionally, what was I going to say? Oh, the imagery of trees. This was something also that my professor pointed out to me. A lot of the times when a fighter is dying and he falls over, he gets compared to a tree being felled. And depending on the fighter, he might be compared to like a weak little sapling, or he might be compared to like a mighty oak tree, depending on, well, the comparison is they're basically like, an oak tree is all big and tough, and it's a big deal when one falls over, whereas a tiny little sapling is all like flimsy and stuff. It doesn't take a whole lot to kill one. So if the fighter is a big tough hero, he's more like an oak tree, whereas I think one of the guys in there just now was a poplar. Not so tough. Poplar trees are kind of wimpy. Pretty, but wimpy. I think that's it. Moving on.